possibly, the player Jordan McNair wouldn't have passed, but it seems like, you have to tone it down a little bit if the media is there at every practice, that sort of thing. I'll also point this out. I mean, look, how did closing the media, how'd that help Florida State last year?
Yeah.
How'd that help Baylor when they did that and they went from 10 victories to where they are now? So these are all very valid things here that we're discussing here. Anyway, want to say this. So I'm going to come back on in about 10 seconds.
Okay.
Yeah, I self-produce the show. We're here in East Tennessee. We cut the costs here a little bit. So. Tri-City Sports Now, I'm Marky Billson, on with Dan Wolken. USA Today made a lot of headlines around when Tennessee hired Jeremy Pruitt. I'm going to ask about that here in a little bit, but just want to touch one last thing on your piece today, and I recommend everyone read it in the USA Today. Dan Wolken, how the Maryland situation shows it's dangerous to cloak college football programs in secrecy. We talked about how Nick Saban does it, and so they want to emulate the champ. But I can also remember stories when he was with the Miami Dolphins, a player who, wasn't he convulsing on the floor, and all Nick Saban could do was step over him and say, well, the leader has to lead, or something of that nature. And it gets me to wonder why, recruits might go to a place where they're going to be treated this way. Do you think that if there was, I guess the question I want to ask is, how can we get more exposure in college football? I mean, it seems to me that we're in dire need of some sort of commissioner to put out media rules, and it'll only help the sport because then it's that much more exposure, free exposure. That's a good thing. How can we get that, Dan Wolken, to occur in the future and not this, dare I say, Nixonian suppression effort?
Well, I'm not sure. I mean, look, the problem with college sports is that the governing body, the NCAA, is not like the NFL. It's not like the NBA. There's no real central organizing body that deals with these sorts of day-to-day issues, and there's no players association that represents the players to determine what's in bounds and what's out of bounds. The problem with college sports in trying to standardize anything is that within a conference, like the SEC, there are 14 fiefdoms. They all operate independently. And then within college football, and the Power Five, there's 5 conferences that are also fiefdoms. They have different rules, and you can't even get people to agree on how many conference games should be played. So the idea that we could have some sort of standard access or openness because it's a good thing for the programs or a good thing for college football, I don't think is very realistic because everyone's agenda is different.
But it would take, I would think, a strong conference commissioner to say, this is how we're doing it, or dare I say, Miles Branner, NCAA president, to come out and say, look, this is the way it's going to be done from now on. And why is there no Kennesaw Mountain Landis in college football, I guess, is my question. It seems like it's overdue, especially if you have player death.
Well, because conference commissioners run the sport, and they all see themselves as 5 equal partners. And they all have different agendas, different constituencies. And, unlike the NFL, for instance, where you have 32 teams, and they're really all kind of the same, except for just what city they play in. They all have the same structure and operation. The difference between
Well, the only other thing I can think, Dan Wolken of USA Today, is for someone like yourself or a sports talk show host like myself to start to question, why are we doing it this way? I mean, why can't it be more transparent and really call them out? I mean, is a player death not enough? Is what's going on at Ohio State not enough? I mean, what are you trying to hide? And hopefully public pressure from the media or wherever can get things to change. I do know that it's sometimes tough in the college football fan base where the feeling oftentimes is my team can do no wrong. And I think you felt that a little bit with your reporting of the Tennessee head coaching situation when Jeremy Pruitt was hired. And I've mentioned myself how unfortunate I think that Jeremy Pruitt does want to limit media access, especially after a couple of years under Butch Jones at Tennessee, where there were so many players injured, and you started wondering, what are they doing in practice? That sort of thing. But I want to start off. The reports were that when John Currie tried to hire Greg Schiano, he called you up and said, "I could use a little bit of help here with promoting this hire and all this." What did you tell John Currie at that point? I mean, it's not your job to be his press agent.
Yeah, I really can't get into the specifics of discussions I had with people that were off the record. I know what's been out there publicly and what's been released by the University of Tennessee. I'm aware of all of that, but my agreement with the source, our conversations were off the record, has not changed. So I do think that into the specifics of that. But what I will say is that sometimes what people see or what they perceive in a small, snippet out of context of a conversation doesn't really represent the reality of what was going on. I generally see some athletic directors since I talk to, I deal with, I try to treat them like people and be respectful and understand that they're going to be involved in conversations with me for hopefully a long time. And I think the situation in Tennessee was an unprecedented situation in college sports. Never seen anything like what happened that day. Whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, it's over. And Tennessee has a coach, and that was 8 months ago. And we'll see what happens with Jeremy Pruitt in Tennessee.
What did you think of the hire? I mean, I mentioned how it seemed as if once Phil Fulmer was hired, all the head coaches, they went away as potential candidates and started focusing on coordinators. Do you think, Dan Wolken, that's more of an indictment on a Phil Fulmer, a former coach who wants to have his fingerprint on the program, or is it simply that, Tennessee just isn't the job it used to be after 20 years of not winning the SEC?
Well, I think it's a little more complex than that. The truth is that this was a tough year to hire coaches. You had Florida, you had UCLA, or you had Nebraska, and given kind of this change in coaching, the way it worked was Scott Frost was the candidate in Florida, Kelly was the candidate in Florida. When they both went elsewhere, Florida basically was looking at a situation where they had to hire Dan Mullen, or it was going to be a really second-tier type of candidate. And then when they made that aggressive move to snatch Dan Mullen away, Tennessee was on the verge of hiring him, then that put Tennessee in a position of mainly second-tier type of candidate. That was just sort of the reality of the coaching search they were dealing with at the time of it. So once the Schiano thing happens the way it did, unfortunately for John Currie, he kind of lost control of the narrative, and so Fulmer saw an opportunity to seize control. And I don't think that the candidate looked at Phil Fulmer and said that he was specifically problematic. I think there was just sort of a notion of chaos around the program. that maybe a lot of people just didn't want to get involved with. And truthfully, once you got past that first year, you were looking at guys like Chad Morris, who was up in Arkansas, and Big Pruitt was a guy sort of in that same mix. So it happened the way it happened. Tennessee has hired a coach in a different year. The outcome of the whole coach stage is different. But that's sometimes the way things work in a really competitive marketplace. Tennessee was, truthfully, not the best, second best, or even third best job on the market, so they were in a difficult situation.
What did you think of the hire as Fulmer as athletic director, Dan Wolken of USA Today? I mean, it seems the modern-day athletic director is more of a numbers cruncher, not an ex-coach. But can Fulmer, as an old coach, be that forward-thinking person that leads Tennessee back to prominence?
Well, I'm not going to pretend that I'm really familiar with the way he thinks about various issues. I think largely, I don't want to think he's a figurehead, but largely his function and his role is to re-engage fans, to make people feel good about the program, and potentially raise a lot of money. And if those are things that he can do effectively, then it might work out as a thing. John Currie, basically his year on the job, hired a number of college athletics professionals to run the day-to-day of the department. Those people are still in place, still have not changed out any of those folks, and so they're doing what they were doing under John Currie. I think with kind of the same direction, the same vision, only now he steps over Fulmer as the face of the organization. And so I don't think for right now it's been a big problem or change one way or the other.
And I know that, for instance, the two coaches in baseball and tennis that Currie hired had improved the balls from their previous season. And Currie also restored Lady Balls to all the women's team, which I know that a lot of people wanted. It really wasn't until the football coaching search that, well, he became an unpopular man. Dan Wolken is a great college football writer. He has written a great column, and I recommend everyone read it. I'm going to be on talking about how college football programs should be more transparent. I think it's healthy for the sport. I think it's healthy for sports themselves to be more transparent. And I recommend everyone read what he has to say. Dan, I want to thank you. I made the contact. Really do enjoy your work. And I hope you won't be a stranger in Tri-City Sports Now when other college football issues come up. But keep up the good work, okay?
Thank you.
When we come back, I'll be talking more, let's talk a little baseball, Tri-City Sports Now.